I also found that for people that were marketing to corporates, they were often saying, hey, if you don't like your job, you need to quit the 9 to 5 and you got to go, start a business, right?
Yeah.
And you and I both know, entrepreneurs who love it, but there are a lot of people out there who do not want to be an entrepreneur. They have no interest at all in starting a business. They just want to be happy in their career. They want to work for a company, give value, be fulfilled, be happy. And so I really am targeting writing this book for them. I want to help people really have a more fulfilling, happy career and life.
All right. Today I am welcoming back Andy Storch. I've had people on the podcast more than once, but this is very cool. There's a genuine reason for it. Andy, of course, was on a prior episode several months ago. Consultant, coach, author, speaker, but now he's got a book out in addition to the 2 podcasts. Dude, congrats on the book. Welcome back. I can't wait to hear about it and what it was like writing the book because, my experience has been, simultaneously exhilarating and also infuriating. So
yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Own your career, own your life. That's it. So
that's the book. Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. I am honored to be back on your show. It's pretty exciting. I always love following you and learning from you in the personal brand space, and I'm always trying to get better there. So it's cool being able to come back on here and to talk and share with others.
Yeah, man. So tell me the story kind of behind the book. You obviously, we all know you, those of you who've heard the episode, Andy worked in the corporate space for quite a bit, did a lot of consulting there, killer conference that everyone raves about, one of the must go to conferences, right? As hailed by many of the experts. So what's the book about? Where'd that kind of come from?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So the book is called Own Your Career, Own Your Life. And, I've been hearing you get in this personal development, entrepreneur space, personal branding space for a long time. You hear people say, you got to have a book. And, you hear that and I'm like,
yeah,
but what am I going to write about? I don't know. I don't know if I really have that much knowledge to be in a book. And so it's kind of always in the back of my mind that, one day I might want to write a book, but it wasn't an urgent thing. And then things all came together last year. About a year ago in November, I was at the Upreneur conference in London, and I heard a talk by your friend, Mr. Jeff Goins, talking about how to write a best-selling book. And I took a bunch of notes, but still it wasn't like, oh, I know what my book is, or I'm going to use this right away, just kind of listening and learning as much as I can. And then it was just one of those weird things over lunch. Another friend, Philip Van Dusen, who has a popular YouTube channel on digital marketing, asked me if he could interview me for his YouTube channel. And we're doing this interview, and then we were just chatting about different things, networking, building a personal brand, all this stuff. And it all kind of came together like a lightning bolt that everything I've been talking to people about for the last year, I can put it together in one book. And I went back and I had given talks at a couple conferences, one on how to own your career, another one on how to prepare for the future of work or prepare for your next career change. And I went back and grabbed those outlines, and those essentially became the first 2/3 of my book. The other big reason or kind of lightning bolt that came from that conversation was that as I've been getting more into, studying, building a network and building a personal brand, things I've been working on for a few years, I find that there is a lot of advice out there, but it tends to almost always be geared towards entrepreneurs, right? You need to go build your network and your brand to build your business. And I also found that for people that were marketing to corporates, they were often saying, hey, if you don't like your job, you need to quit the 9 to 5 and you got to go, start a business, right?
Yeah.
And you and I both entrepreneurs who love it, but there are a lot of people out there who do not want to be an entrepreneur. They have no interest at all in starting a business. They just want to be happy in their career. They want to work for a company, give value, be fulfilled, be happy. And so I really am targeting writing this book for them. I want to help people really have a more fulfilling, happy career and life. And really, as I started thinking about it and going down the road and looking into, thinking about all the conversations I've had with corporate professionals, especially leaders, executives over many years, a lot of people are kind of drifting. They're kind of waiting for other people to tell them what to do. They're in reaction mode. And I want to give people a blueprint to help them map out their career and live really with more intention. And so that was the impetus for the book. And it took me about, I guess the last 10 or 11 months to put the whole thing together. And now it's coming out on November 16th.
Well, no, well, we're excited for you. You guys are hearing this. Obviously, the book is out. The book writing process for me, and we've had a couple of interviews lately about that whole thing. Tucker Max and Karen Anderson, who helped me with the book and the book promotion and the whole thing. And I've always found it interesting because people have said, hey, why didn't you write a book earlier? Well, I tried. I just didn't get around to it. You've been in business now for a little while and then wrote the book. Why not when you first started? Was there a reason? Were you just waiting for someone to tell you? Were you waiting for a session like Jeff to hear and you're like, wow, I was inspired? But what was it like that made you maybe wait a little bit? Because some people jump the gun and do it right away.
Yeah, and I think there's plenty of reason, right? They say the book is the new business card. You're building a personal brand in business, right? You got to have a book. And I heard all that, and I thought, yeah, I would like to have a book, but I didn't know what the hell it would be. And so, the simple answer to your question is confidence. I didn't have the confidence. I didn't think that I had the content that would make a book interesting because I didn't want to put a book out there just to have a book. One of those people that's like, yeah, no one's going to read my book, but at least they'll see that I have a book and that'll make me look cool. Like, no, I want this book to not only be good, the way I approached writing this book, taking everything I've learned from experts that I've studied from, is that I want it to be life-changing for people who come across it, right? And yeah, I'm self-publishing it, so I'm not expecting it to light the world on fire, but I want people to pick it up and take it, take advantage, learn from it, implement the lessons, and really change their habits and change their life and change their career. I want to be that accelerator that I have gotten from other people. So many other authors that have helped me along my journey. I want to contribute that. And now the other benefits that come from that, combining all of the corporate experience where I've really spent many years essentially selling other people's content and programs. Now that I've got this book and I've got my own content, I'm actually venturing into starting to create my own corporate learning programs, my own content that I can sell into companies, which is much more profitable than selling other people's stuff. Not as easy, but and it all comes back to this book. But I wanted there to be, I see it as the centerpiece, and I wanted it to actually be good. So for me, I guess I was waiting to actually have something that I felt proud of putting out there.
Yeah, I totally get that. I waited until I had an audience to sell it to, to promote it
That's
to.
another thing, yeah.
It's just, I see a lot of folks who, as soon as they start out, they want to write a book. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just really difficult to get the book to do what you want it to do because books also have a shelf life. And even if the book is evergreen in content, people's perception of it changes over time. Right. Oh, 5 years ago, that's an old book. So they don't read it. It's really weird how that space, kind of plays out. You got the audience, you're not turning this into IP. So what was that creation process for you like? You had outlines, you had notes, you had frameworks. How'd you write it?
Yeah, I'll get to that, but I also want to comment on the audience piece because I think you're absolutely right. It's very helpful to have that audience. And for a long time, I didn't. Even when I had the podcast, I wasn't really following your advice and others by building that email list. I waited for a while to do that. And then I finally started building it. And I guess timing works out really well. I can't say I planned this perfectly, but I also took your advice and hosted a virtual summit a few weeks ago. And in the talent development space where I've been working, and had nearly 2,000 people register for that, which was a nice boost to the email list as I was then going out to start promoting this book.
Perfect.
And so that fits well into the marketing plan. So we can come back to that. But as far as the writing process, when I started writing this on January 1st, funny enough, it was like, set the big goals. I'm going to write a book this year. Start writing on January 1st. I had not really done much writing before. I've never had a blog. I've got 2 podcasts, but I've never written very much. I didn't know if I could. I had no idea. And I started asking, other author friends, how long is the typical business book? And people would say about 50,000 words, 40 to 60,000 words, something like that. No hard and fast rules, but I thought 50,000 words, that sounds like a ton of writing. How am I ever going to do that? And so then I got some great advice from a couple people. One of them was Honore Corridor, who's a prolific book author and coach. And I ended up taking a course and studying from her, who said, just break it down into a habit, daily habit, 500 words a day for 100 days. And you got 50,000 words. And I still thought, oh, 500 words, is that a lot? And she said, no, you probably write emails that are 500 words. I'm like, okay, I can probably try to do that. And so, I'm already a big morning routine kind of guy, early morning guy. So I just added it to my morning routine, where essentially every morning around 6 a.m. or so, I would just start writing. And my goal was to write at least 500 words per day. And some days I only wrote 300, but many days I wrote 700 or 1,000. And I did it 7 days a week for 3.5 months. I probably missed 2 or 3 days. And I see your face, and I am amazed with myself as well, because I didn't think that I would have it in me, and it just started flowing. And so I finished it up, and I don't know, 3.5 months, something like that.
Kill me now.
I'm so sorry.
I could not. It's you ever read that Stephen Pressfield book, War of Art?
Yeah,
so he talks about resistance, right?
Yeah.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with this, you should absolutely pick up this book. Every creative should read War of Art. It is like one of the Bibles of a creative person. And he basically says, anytime you do something worthwhile, you run into resistance, capital R, resistance, right? And you lean into the resistance, and that's how you find where you're supposed to go. But it's incredible what happens. And so we distract ourselves. We all the things.
Yep.
I was working on the book. I didn't do it in a daily habit at all. I did sometimes in huge chunks. Then I didn't touch it for a week or two. Then I'd come back and edit some of it on my phone because I wrote it in Google Docs. It had transcripts from podcasts and stuff thrown in. It was just a huge mess to weed through. And funny. This is like, I'm like wondering, during the year of COVID, like, how in the world did I keep such a good exercise routine? Okay. You know why? Because I didn't want to write my book. I would have rather worked out
right
than work on the book. So it's just kind of incredible. So guys like you who are like that, where you can do the same thing every day. Dude, I was like, at the end, I called Karen, my editor, and I said, I'm out. I got nothing left in the tank. You need to deliver this baby, cut me open, get it out of me. I don't care. I don't care if I have to pay you the equivalent of buying you a Toyota Camry. You need to get this out of me. It's just everyone's different. And so that's really interesting to kind of hear your process through that. And it's awesome that you did a summit, because 2,000 people, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people.
Well, and I got to tell you, and first of all, we all have our things that we have that resistance to, right? Like I cannot sit down and write a sales page, and I'm sure you can write those all day long. But
no, I can't do that either.
No? Oh, you can't do that either.
This is what most people don't understand. They think I'm good at stuff where like I can like lock down and do stuff. I can't. I do not have that. I have to chunk it. Because I obsess over it. Yeah. So like when I write sales pages, part of the reason I charge a lot of money is because I'm not going to have a life. Like it kills a little bit of my soul every time I do a marketing campaign. So like for me to do that, I'm like, well, I better be compensated well, because I'm literally losing a piece of my soul. Dude, I will not stop thinking about it. I'm one of those people. I don't know if there's a label for us, but I think about it. I dream about it. First thing I do when I wake up, I got to change this. When I'm going to bed, I'm like, no, I got to change this paragraph. It's crazy. So for me to write a book and do that, just insane. So man,
I think we have our ups and downs, but I think we have our ups and downs with this stuff, because I wrote the book in 3.5 months using the habits. But then I kind of sat on it for another 3 or 4 months as I was like reviewing it, reworking it. My wife took a stab and kind of reworked some stuff for me. And then I hired an editor and got it to him. And after like 2 months later than I told him I would. And then he got it back to me. And then I needed to review all of his, fixes, edits, whatever. And I think I put that off for another month or two, because that part was just like, in my mind, I was like already done with it, but I still had to go back and do that. And I had also shifted my focus, because at that point I was then in like major launch mode for the virtual summit. And I want to
Mm.
give you credit for that, because that idea, I think, I'd heard a few people talking about virtual summits, but it came from you. I think I was either listening to your podcast or somewhere else, and I heard the interview you did with Mark Wade, and talking about virtual summits and one you ran. And I thought, I'm going to do that, especially now that we're in lockdown. Nobody's going to conferences anymore. I'm going to put something on to benefit the talent development community, my niche, and build my email list. And so I put this thing together. I actually went through a challenge and then a course that Mark Wade put on, and learned everything I could from him. And I hired an assistant a few months ago, partly because she had experience with virtual summits in the past. And the two of us built this thing. It was a 5-day summit with 32 speakers in the space. We got 2,000 people registered. We made some money. It was profitable, which was really nice. And the connections and the conversations, the relationships we built from it was just awesome. So I want to thank you for putting that bug in my head. And then we went out and executed on it, like I try to do with everything.
That's what I do. That's all of my life is. I just put bugs in people's ears. It's like, I do it, get people who've done it, get people to do things and do it. That's amazing. We have folks who listen to this show, and many of them have started their own business, but others are still kind of dipping their toe in the water, seeing if this is right for them. I remember being in that space, being between, working a job that I was well compensated for, but didn't know, I definitely knew I didn't want to stay there forever. And then I sort of stumbled into this whole online entrepreneur / solopreneur space. When we talk about people who are making career mistakes, I know you have a little guide on that. We have folks probably who are listening right now that are in that kind of valley of decision, if you will.
Yeah.
Anything you could say along those lines? Whether maybe it's like, well, Andy, I'll look more seriously at entrepreneurship after I do one more job change.
Right.
Is that a mistake? Are there some things that you've seen people do or shouldn't do in order to kind of like get on the right path?
Yeah. Well, I know you're big on helping people, telling people to think about their values and purpose and where they really want to go. Right. And what pisses them off. I know you like to say from time to time. I think it's really important to give some deep thought to who you are, your strengths, weaknesses, what you want to do, where you want to go. You can really set a vision for your life and think about, do you want to start that business? Is it something you want to do right away, or is it longer term? And then if you're in a job and you're thinking about doing it one day, you can plan out a long-term plan. You don't have to do things, tomorrow. It's okay to say, I'm going to do it next year, as long as you're putting a specific plan in place that I'm going to build my network along the way. I'm going to start putting content out there to build a personal brand. I'm going to try to, build a side hustle and find some clients on the side. It's not like you have to quit your job and burn the bridges. I think what the mistakes that people make are, one, they take a job purely for money instead of something that's a better fit for their career, or maybe building the skills they might need for that future business, or, where they want to get to long term, or they stick things out in a job that is terrible because they think, oh, I'll be able to turn things around, or I'll change the culture myself or something. And it never happens, right? That it always gets the best of them, and then they got to leave anyway. Or what you said, people putting things off, saying life will be better when I get my next promotion, or I'll start to work on this when I get the next job, or I need to, and it might be that you seriously do need to save up a certain amount of money, or you got to you want to get past a certain milestone, like your kids, graduating from high school or something like that. That's understandable. I think a lot of people put really like arbitrary restrictions on themselves, especially defining their happiness or fulfillment, saying that, I'll be happier when, this next thing happens, or I get the promotion, or whatever it may be, or something that even has nothing to do with you, like the election or anything else. Like one of the big reasons why I wrote this book is I want people to really take ownership and responsibility for their own career, their own life, because nobody cares more about your career than you do. And so you've got to make those decisions. And even if you make the wrong decision, at least you made a decision and went after something, because you and I know from personal experience, we try a lot of this stuff and then it doesn't work out. We learn from it, we pivot, and we try the next thing. We got plenty of time. I think so many people are so afraid of failure that they just sit there for a long time and just don't ever try.
I think a huge part of it is just skills. I love that you said that. you take a job that doesn't teach you any substantive skill or allow you to practice any kind of substantive skill, like that to me was just not a good thing. Like I remember, I don't know if I ever told you, my first job in sales and marketing, I was paid to lie. I was in college, sophomore year of college.
Yeah.
Second semester, I took the semester off. I didn't have money to pay for school, so I was living in New Jersey. That's where I went to school, and I found a job in the Sunday paper. That's how people found jobs back then, in the Sunday classifieds, right, for part-time work.
I remember that.
And it was a telemarketing position. They said, we'll train you. You'll make a base hourly salary, and you'll get a commission for whatever you sell. Now, I hate telemarketers. Nobody likes telemarketers. But I was surprisingly good at this sales thing. Like, they had a leaderboard every day. I was on the top 3 every single day. All I did was lie. And but I had to read this script. That's why I'd say it was a lie. I wasn't just making things up. It was the script that they gave us. And it really taught me how to work a phone. It taught me how to have conversations, sales conversations. So that was a skill I never forgot. Like, even you doing all these podcasts, most people who work in corporate, they can't do podcasts. They're not comfortable speaking. They like, oh yeah, one day I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to start a podcast, a YouTube channel, sell courses, create courses, blah, blah, blah. That's like 18 different skills.
Right.
How'd you learn these skills? Were there jobs along the way that helped you learn how to present, how to speak, how to command a room, honestly, a lot of people can't even get their thoughts straight to put into a framework or some sort of keynote or presentation. I have friends who work in corporate. They are terrified of giving a 10-minute presentation in the boardroom with their team. I'm like, what? But then I forget. I sometimes forget, I've had this cumulative amount of skills. How is that for you? Like, how did you learn all that?
Yeah, it's same thing I tell my kids all the time. Practice. You've got to find opportunities to practice these things. And some of them, you and I know, right? Some of them are innate, natural skills that we have. I am naturally good on stage in front of a room. I've figured that out from seeing other people and how comfortable I am. But I also have practiced a ton. And I got lucky that, 9 years ago, I got a job with a global consulting firm that allowed me to create and run workshops for executive audiences and travel all over the world doing that. And had a strong feedback culture too. So we would practice in front of each other, which was the most terrifying thing. Like, I would go up in front of the C-suite of a big company before I would go in front of my colleagues from the consulting firm, because they would just, tear you apart if you were not, oh, you said this, you said that, you need to ask the question. And it was all obviously with love. We were trying to help each other. But we gave each other a lot of feedback, and I improved a ton from having experienced facilitators watch me and give me feedback and learning and trying to, provide the most value getting in front of audiences. And then that was all about facilitation, which is a lot about asking questions, which lended really well to starting a podcast and doing interviews and, having conversations and asking questions. And it goes back to what I said earlier and what you really pulled out of that, which is that if you do think you want to start a business in something and you want your job to help with that, then, it's nice to make money and save money, but where can you get the skills that are going to help you? What job can you take that can help you get the skills? And if the job is not going to help you, can you start something on the side that's going to help you build the skills? Start the podcast or the blog on the side. Start talking to clients, do some pro bono work, just to get the practice, right? While you've got a salary. And it's going to help you practice and build so many skills so that when the pressure is on, like it is for us, where you got to go out and hunt, to feed yourself and your family, then you have that experience and you never stop learning too. I'm always investing in learning more, following people like you. I invested in the workshop from Mark Wade to learn how to do a virtual summit. I invested in a course from an expert to learn how to market a book. So now I'm going into book marketing mode, right? Anything I venture into, I'm investing in learning as much as I can, and then also trying things and getting feedback and continuing to adjust and pivot and get better.
I love that about feedback culture. That is something that we, in the personal branding space, the solopreneur space, I don't see a lot of. People will create content. they'll just lob it out online. Even with marketing, they'll just swipe each other's stuff, swipe
Yeah.
files and stuff like that. And you kind of fall into this sort of bubble where the folks who love you just love you no matter what. I mean, you could put out really bad content and they'll say that was awesome.
Yeah.
And then anyone who says anything even remotely critical is immediately labeled a hater. So nobody ever says anything critical. Or we don't ask because we have just people who are yes men around us and just say good things.
Yeah.
I will never forget. Maybe about a year and a half ago, I went to a workshop with Michael and Amy Port. Michael is the author of Heroic Public Speaking, or Steal the Show. Sorry, he has a program called Heroic Public Speaking. The guy was educated at NYU, yeah, and Book Yourself Solid, and was on TV show after TV show. So by this point, I've been speaking at events for 4 years, and I go to this workshop because I got a free ticket, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go all the way back to New Jersey to have this guy eviscerate me on stage, and I don't care because it's an open thing.
Yeah.
So there's like 30 or 40 people there. It's like, okay, who has an opening they want to do on stage here? We're going to critique you. No one's raising. I was like, me. Yeah. Tear me up, man. Tear me apart. And I think that you want to get really good at something. That's a minimum requirement. I was talking to Aaron Walker recently, and we're on the podcast, and he said, quality is not a differentiator. Quality is expected. Now. People can get quality everywhere. So you've got to that's par for the course. Whereas I used to maybe be a decent speaker just because I could communicate clearly, but I'm like, still, no, I want to be better. I want to be better. Yeah. Those skills are hugely important. And I remember practicing and where did I practice? I used to teach high school kids. I used to run meetings. I used to, not a lot of people know this. I've shared a little bit more now on the podcast, but I don't think you know this. When I was in my 20s, I taught at an after-school academy for high school kids, helping them get into college. People ask, how come you're never nervous when you speak? Really? Because if you want to know what nervous is, it's walking into a room of 25 high school kids, 11th graders with their attitudes who do not want to be at extra classes after school to study for a test that they don't want to take to go to a college they don't really care about going to, but their parents paid a lot of money for. Whoa. I'm like, after I do that, I can do anything.
That's tough. Yeah, my dad was a high school teacher for 30 years, and I'm, getting up in front of C-suite executives. I'd rather do that than get up in front of high school kids. But you're right. Getting that feedback is so important, and being willing to get up there. It's not always easy. It's still not easy for me because there's that little voice of like, oh, they're rejecting you, right? They're judging you. But most of the time, it's meant to help you get better. And another example. This is the first time I'm writing a book, right? I just published my first book, and I want it to be as good as possible. I sent it to some people ahead of time. My wife, who's my biggest critic and biggest fan, to go through it and help me fix some stuff. And then I formed an advanced reader team. And thanks to having that big list, I ended up having 400 people on my advanced reader team. And I sent the book out to them a month before the launch and said, will you please read this and see if you can find any typos and give me any feedback you have. And people were very eagerly sending me, oh, I found this typo. And it was great because I made all the adjustments. And by the time I published the book, all of those things were fixed. And I've realized I was kind of like reflecting, in my younger days when I was so afraid of judgment and rejection, it would have been so hard. Oh, so-and-so found a typo. They must think I'm an idiot. But now I see it as like, oh, they're being helpful. They're helping me. The feedback is helpful for me. Just as I would want to, if you sent me your book, I would be proud to be like, hey, I found these 2 things that you could change. Yeah. I think your book is great. And I think if you just shift this one thing, it's going to be even better. And that allows us, to continue to improve.
Yeah, no, it's so important. I love that. This is why I love talking to people who actually are outside of this solopreneur space, because that's where I came from. And I carried a lot of those lessons that have helped me succeed here. So have you. I'm always trying to interview people who are like chiropractors or doctors or people have sold 12 companies like Aaron that I just mentioned. These folks have a different perspective on business, and the market really does self-correct. Like, you want to be in business, there are certain principles. They're like universal principles you've got to pay your dues. You've got to do well. It's just not, you can't just throw a blog online and expect to make a ton of money. You got to be really good, So, dude, thank you for all this and sharing just kind of your creative process. I think it'll encourage a lot of people as they set out and write their own book. And I always love hanging out with you and talking with you, and just sharing what this whole journey is like. You've got a resource. I think I mentioned it just a tad before, but it's about top 5 career mistakes. I encourage everyone listening to it, and buy the book, right?
Buy the book, yeah. And by the way, the book
for yourself or somebody.
So the book is Own Your Career, Own Your Life. And I know I said I wrote it mostly for corporate professionals. I do think it would be just as beneficial for entrepreneurs. I have 2 chapters all about networking and the importance, why and how to build your network, and a full chapter on building your personal brand, with lots of things I've learned from you and others, and what's worked for me in building my brand, especially in the corporate space. And if you're thinking about your own career and what mistakes you might be making, I did put together a report of the top 5 most common career mistakes that people make. And you can go check those out, see if you are making any of these. It's at ownyourcareerownyourlife.com/mistakes. It's ownyourcareerownyourlife.com/mistakes. And the book is available on Amazon.
Yeah, right on. We'll get word out about that. And I don't even know what career I want to be in when I grow up.
Still plenty of time, Mike.
Yeah, that's that's entrepreneurship is like that, So, all right, brother. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Be well.